Okay, hello. My name is Octavio Parravicini. I'm a student, and this is for my final assignment, I would say, for this class. I'm going to talk about the legalization of drugs. We're going to talk about drugs most of all. I'm going to focus on the two sides of the argument, one being for drugs or for legalization of drugs, and the other one being against legalization of drugs. We're gonna go through two people, one being Michael Huemer, who is a psychologist, and the other one being James Q. Wilson, who was a member of government and he achieved a lot of different things. But he's very well known, or at least when I was looking him up, I learned about he being the man who implied a policy in New York. I think it was called the Broken Windows Policy. That changed that city and turned it into what it was at that time, a very bad place and a very dangerous place, filled with drugs and everything, into one of the greatest cities in the world at that time, obviously. For those who don't know, there's two sides. So obviously both sides have like different aspects, and there's people who have different opinions, but you could generalize both into how you say Democrats and Republicans. You could say prohibitionists and legalizers. The words are pretty self-explanatory, but for those who don't know, prohibitionists are the one who are against there being a legalization of any drug because of different reasons, and then the legalizers are the ones who are for the legalization of drugs. Legalizers, usually like most of them are in favor, for example, the legalization of marijuana, but I feel like there's a lot of argument within that side of the argument, you could say, that are in favor of marijuana, for example, for medical use, and other drugs for medical use, but are against of like making it like a free for all, that anyone could get any drugs. So yeah, but in this case, Michael Huemer, who is the legalizer, the one who's for legalization, he believes that there should be no limit. So everyone should be able to get any drug if they want to, and we'll go through what that means. Okay, so Huemer talks about three different topics, or he separates his article in like three different parts. In the first two, he talks about two reasons why drugs are bad and why they should be banned. And in the third, he counter-argues those two by talking just about human rights and taking it to the most basic level of laws that you could say, or the Constitution here in the U.S., which he believes that is enough to counter-argue that side of the fence, I guess you could say. Okay, so to go deeper into them, the two first reasons he finds that people tend to use to be against legalization of drugs is it causes harm to users and it causes harm to other people around those users. So, for example, for both, it causes harm to users. Like I feel like everybody knows that people who drink or people who smoke weed all the time or people who do cocaine, long-term get psychological effects that damage them. There's people that get twitches, there's people that are more lazy, there's people that lose brain cells. I don't know if that's the case, I just guessed. And there's people that get affected like deeply, not only psychologically but also physically. Like you see that there's people you tend to see, like I don't know if you ever saw them, but there's pictures that show like before and after crack or before and after some drugs, and you see those people that are like devastated. So, and then the other argument is that it harms others, which is also pretty self-explanatory, because if you think about it, there's a lot of people that drink, and those people could go into a crush and kill people, or they could go because they're, I don't know, high on cocaine. They would like to do something more extreme, so they put other people in danger. And this is a very common occurrence. Like it happens all the time, and it's part of drugs. Not all of them. There's, for example, marijuana. I don't feel like it's a drug that it induces people to do harm. I would even say the other way around, but it does have effects long term, which could harm either them or others. Because, for example, they could be lazier. So if they're at work, they would come in late at work, and their boss or the business would be in jeopardy because there's one person that isn't coming because he's smoking weed. You could say whatever. So yeah, and the other side of the coin, or the argument, there's James Q. Wilson, who is a prohibitionist, and he talks about his own experience with heroin in the United States. So he focuses on there being around, if I'm not wrong, it was 500,000 cases of heroin addicts around the streets, and they asked them questions, and they found out that those people, most of them stopped using that type of drug because it was either too expensive or hard to get because it was super like controlled by the police or the government or whatever you could call it. So this was in 1972, and then within time, people started learning that these heroin addicts most of them were just aging, and the numbers weren't increasing in cases. So he believed that the good thing about banning drugs was that only 500,000 people were addicted, and if that wasn't the case, and as Milton Friedman says, who was an economist, a libertarian economist, he believed that if that was the case, the price of drugs would be much lower. In this case, heroin, the price would be much lower, and the accessibility for it would be much easier to get. So it would cause a lot of people to get into heroin, get addicted, harm themselves, and harm others. So that's like the basic idea, you could say. If there's anything else I'm missing, I'll let you guys know. So, what is my opinion on this? I mean, well, I've looked into it because I'm interested in this topic. I don't do, like myself, I don't consume any drugs except alcohol, and I do it only for recreational purposes. But I'm not against marijuana or whatever drug. Like I feel like whatever you want to do, as long as you're within age, which is also another debate if it should be over 21 or over 18. But that's arguable, you could say. But I'm not against any drugs. Like I feel, well, what I missed was Michael Huemer's argument with rights. What he believed is that people should have the right to do whatever they want, as long as they don't directly harm others. We know that the outcome of this is that it could harm others, but there's millions of things that do that. Like you could even go driving and you can harm other people, or you could, I don't know, scream. You could say something. You could hit someone, and yeah, it's like it's a tough line to determine, I would say, but I don't feel like banning drugs is the solution. Like people still get to the drugs they want to get, and it's interesting to see what James Q. Wilson says, especially him being a politician, or him being at that time a member of the government, and I feel like it's super ignorant. Like it's because he only talks about heroin, but he's not talking about the other drugs that are much cheaper and are much easier to get. Like even cigarettes, it's like he's against cocaine, but he's not against cigarettes, which are also addictive and which also harm other people. Because if you smoke in an enclosed place or in a closed area, other people are smoking too, and it damages their lungs long term. So it's like it's interesting to see how they pick and choose what is right and what is good just for the sake of their arguments. And another interesting thing that I saw is that heroin numbers are now climbing, like it's rising. I saw a statistic that said from 2002 to 2013 that the numbers were rising. I don't remember exactly what numbers. Maybe it was like 10,000 to 15,000, or maybe it was 100 to 130. But it's still like an increasing number, and it's still illegal. So it's not like, maybe it did work from 1972 to 1990 because also the police was much more harsher and rules were much more strict, you could say. But it doesn't make it right. Like I don't know. I feel like also again he only talks about heroin, but what about cocaine? What about, I don't know, meth? What about all the other drugs, alcohol? And we've also seen that in the U.S. Like when they banned alcohol, people were making moonshine. Like people are still gonna try and get to the drugs that they want to get, and making it more expensive. It's not a good thing. Like it's not gonna solve anything. It's just gonna make those people get into crimes so that they can get the drugs. Like I feel like it's a huge issue today. Not only like mafias and people that have businesses through drugs, which if they were legalized wouldn't exist, or they would exist, but it wouldn't be as harmful as they are, where they kill people and there's like no rules for that game. I lost my train of thought. I'm sorry. But yeah, I don't know. Like it's obviously a hard question to answer if they should be legal or not. But I stand firmly on the side that it should be. Like I don't feel like I'm no one. Like I don't feel like I have any sort of authority, even if I was a president of the country. Like I don't feel like I have any authority to tell people what to do and what not to do, as long as they're not harming each other. But it's different with drugs because it's not, people don't take cocaine to go hit other people or to go damage other people. It's just the rush that it gives you. And there's some people that harm other people, but it's not the purpose of the drug. It's the same with guns. Like people do get guns and people do harm people with guns, but it doesn't mean that guns are bad or that guns are the only way that for people to harm each other. And as I said before, like it's easy to say, oh yeah, numbers in heroin addicts has stayed the same, as if it was like something good. Like yes, there is a chance that if drugs were available to everyone, that the amount of addicted people or people that consume it was higher. And there's consequences that we should face with that as a society. But I feel like it's much more important for us to know how to respect others and know how to prioritize themselves. Like if you want to go do cocaine, as long as you don't harm me. And if you do, you should suffer the consequences. Like I'm not against like people, like I'm not against people having to face the consequences of doing drugs and harming others. But it's still I don't know, I feel like it's just not okay to not allow people. As the Constitution says, people should have the right to do whatever they want as long as they don't harm others. So yeah, I feel like, I don't know if I'm missing something else. But yeah, in conclusion, I understand James Q. Wilson's side of the argument, because I know that there's a lot of people, I even have people in my family and myself that are addicted and that have harmed us or me. Like it is sad, but it doesn't mean like they're still doing the drugs even if they're illegal. Like it's not. And there's even like a taboo part of it where because it is illegal, it has like, there's people that are drawn to it because it is illegal and because it is wrong to do. Like we've all done things that are illegal just for the fun of it, you could say. Obviously it's not the same, I don't know, to do a hard drug than to pee outside, but I mean, there's people that do go through that. And they should be responsible for that. Like if they're good, okay, they're good. If they're bad, okay, you should face the consequences of being bad. So I don't know. My opinion is I'm for all drugs being legalized. It's also funny to see how the government says like, oh yeah, we're against weed, but they still have tobacco, or they still have the opioid crisis that's currently going on in the US, which is a drug that is addictive. But it's much easier to talk about something that's been demonized for so long that people don't even know enough about them. And I'm pretty ignorant about them myself. But I'm like, I'd rather take a stance where I'm just, okay, do you, like, be yourself, be free, rather than trying to make other people not do something that they're gonna do anyway, and in a worse situation with less regulation or less security. So yeah, I think that's it. Thank you for taking the time to listen to my video podcast, you could say. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thank you, and bye-bye.